Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, now I can hear you. What's up?
Hey, how's it going, Hunter? How's it going, man?
Going good. I'm sorry about my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather.
Nah, you're good, man. You're good. It happens to the best of us, honestly.
So what's up? You were in my
Um,
chat saying you pray that I find the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ or something?
yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I sent that to you in the chat, and I think I remember debating you a while ago, about a certain passage in Leviticus. It was quite a while ago. But yeah, no, it was more of just a farewell, like amongst your being, I guess, is the best way to put it. I mean,
Well,
I
you
am a
know that I was
Christian.
already Christian, right?
Yeah, I do. And I kind of wanted to, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really plan on debating you today. I just kind of was wishing a farewell upon you. But I mean,
I don't know
if
why. It's just something about those messages. They I know your intention was not to be passive aggressive. However, they read as very passive aggressive. And again, I know that was not your intent, but
no, that's
still, it's
okay, man.
like
I understand. I understand that, certain Christians who quote unquote claim to be Christian don't.
it kind of reminds me
Um,
of Christians when they're like, "We'll have fun in hell," haha. Like they
yeah,
sort of seem like they're
exactly.
like
It's
they're
more vengeful than actually trying to put the person in a better place. And I can completely get behind that. I think there are many Christians who can be hypocritical like that.
Well, do you
Um,
think that me following our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ would make my life better?
Personally, yeah, I do.
How so?
Um, well, here's the thing. I think, I've had my own share of questions about Christianity. I've been in places where I really kind of turned away from it
Mhm.
and was kind of in a similar rational place of how can there be a God if you can't really prove him? How can you really prove the Bible to be true? Um, and all
Mhm.
these things. And I guess I still am kind of figuring those things out. But I think when it comes down to its principles
Mhm.
and the way that you ought to live, I kind of reject um, the subjective morality argument where everyone kind of just has their own way of viewing the world morally and that they have a certain view that is either right or wrong.
Mm.
I kind of reject that. I think that there is some sort of basis of morality that we all stand against, but I don't think it's based on our own conscience. I think it's based on something else.
So you know what I'm going to ask
If
next,
you want to
right?
take that,
I'm sure you can predict what I'm going to ask next. Is what does
yeah, go.
following God say about gay people?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, in the Bible, it definitely shows that there's a lot of evidence to support that homosexuality is a sin. But let me ask you a question right back, Hunter. What do you think sin is? How can you define sin?
Well, hold on, wait a minute, because you said that following God would make my life better, but I don't think that being against gay people would actually make my life better. I also think that would worsen the lives of gay people.
Well, hang on a minute. Who said that Christians are against gay people?
You just did.
No, 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 no. Here's the thing. Okay, sin is universal to every human being. It's not just an us versus them thing. It's not Christians, at least how it should be viewed and how Jesus expresses is that we are all just as broken as one or the other, okay? I mean, I am just as broken as if I steal an apple from a Walmart to the person who murders someone else in that same Walmart, right?
Yeah,
Like
but
I am
if you
just as
think about those both examples, the person that steals from the Walmart is doing a net harm both to the
yeah,
corporation, to the overall economy. The person that
correct.
murders is doing a net harm to the other person that's getting murdered. Two gay
Yeah.
people in a relationship does no harm.
Well, hang on, Hunter. Here's the thing. How do you? This is why I asked you this question. Okay. How can you define sin? What does sin mean to you?
Well, sin defined biblically would be something that offends God.
Not necessarily. No, that's not actually how it's biblically defined. Biblically defined, it's sin is a separation between you and God. So
Okay, so but why is that a sin? Why has God said, you know what, this is a sin, even though there are people that have a genetic predisposition to being gay, and gay
sure.
people, when they're consensually together, they don't do a harm. They're more likely to adopt kids. They do a benefit. Like, why would it doesn't make any sense why I should be against this?
Well, that's a very good question, Hunter. I think when it comes down to the morality of the Bible and why certain morals are in a direction of right and wrong, I can't really answer that to you right now, and I don't think I ever really will. But what I can tell you is that when you do follow the guidelines of the Bible, when you do discipline yourself into the morals of the Bible, you do become a lot more stable as a person, even statistically. It is shown, I read a recent statistic that despite the divorce rate in marriages being quite high, marriages that actually practice prayer at night actually only divorce 1% at a time. So, I mean, that's one example.
Sure, that could have a lot to do though with stigma around.
Hang on. That's hard to extrapolate all marriages and saying that, well, if you do this one thing, then your marriage is just going to solve itself. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that in general, it does reduce the risk of long-term harm and long-term instability, and not only to yourself but others around you.
So where's the harm from gay people, though?
I mean, okay, well, first of all, I don't really know where this came from. But, I mean, the harm really, well, how I view it, is that it's coming down to denying how you were created originally.
Okay, so where do you stop? Where do you draw the line there? So, like, how I was created originally was to have. Well, hold on, wait. Because I was technically created originally to have like 20/70 vision, but I wear glasses, so I'm also denying the way that I was originally created.
I mean, not really. You're just adding something to yourself. I mean, that's kind of different.
Is plastic surgery a sin?
I mean, it doesn't explicitly state that in the Bible. So I
mean,
but
you're saying that but you're saying homosexuality is wrong because it goes against what God has naturally created us to be. And I'm saying that people do that all the time. We do all sorts of things that are different from nature, even so much as using a toilet, plastic surgery, etc. Is any of this a sin?
Hang on. I never said that it was against nature. I never said any of that. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm clearly saying that because it is written in the Bible as being a sin in multiple passages. In the Old Testament, in the New Testament, or in the Old Testament, it says lying with another man. But, you know, that is still historically extrapolated, especially in the early church, as being homosexuality. That is what I'm stating, is that because it's written in the Bible, it is a sin. Now,
but what makes it a sin? Just because it's written in the Bible?
Yeah, correct. Because it is. I mean, how can you say that murder is a sin, or how anything else?
Because that does a harm. I can secularly say murdering is wrong because that harms people. It harms society. It makes everything unsafe, etc. Two gay people getting married consensually as adults, that does nothing.
Well, how do you know that does nothing?
Because we can look statistically, and gay couples are more likely to adopt, and the kids adopted by gay couples are far more likely to do just as well, if not better, than peers raised by straight parents. So there's no evidence to suggest that gay couples are...
Well, hang on. What constitutes just as well? Like academically?
Academically, likelihood of doing drugs, stability in life, mental health, all of the... like a wide array of things.
Well, okay. I mean, sure, that's in a family setting. I have never read a statistic like that. Maybe I will soon. And I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, if it's a family structure, I mean, we all know that the nuclear family is obviously more stable than one that isn't, or a single parent home. But when you're arguing for the validity of it being a sin, it's just not how God designed. And I know that's not an answer that you like, because you like concrete information. Well,
it's not really. It's not even that it's an answer I don't like. It's that it's not a real answer. Like, why is it okay then to do some things and not okay to do other things? If God said it, what makes it a sin? What makes it wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I can't really answer that right now, honestly. Like, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that this is kind of my main issue with Christianity, is it's way too wishy-washy and vague. And like, I feel like I'm interested in maximizing human well-being. And so for me, that includes accepting gay people. Christianity specifically preaches against that, which only hinders maximizing human well-being.
Well, Hunter, okay, you're missing a lot of what I'm trying to tell you, is that just because it's a sin doesn't mean that we should separate ourselves from it. We are all sinful beings. It is believed in Christianity that we are all just as sinful, okay? And that means that I am just as sinful as the homosexual person practicing homosexuality. I am not entitled to look down on that person anyway because they are practicing something else.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to be looking back on them. That doesn't matter. It's still wrong to look at somebody for having a genetic predisposition, for being a certain way that they have no choice in being, and saying God says that's a sin. This is the equivalent. I hate to tell you, but it's the equivalent of saying God says it's a sin to be black. It is the equivalent, my friend.
He didn't actually say that, though.
I know, but I'm saying that it's the equivalent. It's the same level of bigotry and asinine sort of sentiments. When you say that God says it's a sin to be gay, it's just as delusional as if somebody said God says it's a sin to be white.
So, I mean, I guess this comes down to the point of what do you think... excuse me, sorry. What do you think our genders are for then? Because, I mean, if we both disagree on that, then we're not even going to get any common ground on this.
Well, I'm guessing you're going to say to reproduce.
Well, no. I mean, I think that there are certain roles that God has provided a man and a woman. I think there's a reason why he made us different. But I mean, that's not the only reason, though. I mean, it's obviously to create a covenant with another human being.
But why can't two men do that if they're attracted to each other and they love each other?
Well, see here. Okay, so I understand where you're coming from. You're coming from if it doesn't harm the other person, then why not?
If it's not a harm, that's what pretty much. Yeah, if it's not doing a harm both to society or to even the individuals, why is it a sin? Everything else is a sin. Every other sin, like in the Ten Commandments, kind of makes sense. Like that leads to a harm. Obviously, murdering somebody, stealing something that takes away from somebody else and what they worked hard to get. Obviously, that does a harm. But for being gay, there's just no harm there.
Sure. So then how do you so then what's your view on pornography then? I mean, that obviously doesn't harm people because you're viewing it, it's in your own time. You're not inherently harming the other person.
That could actually be a harm for sure. But also that's completely separate because that doesn't involve two people in a consensual sort of thing.
Sure. Okay, so there. That's I'm glad we agree there. Okay, then I'm just confused on why you think that it's, I mean, statistically, I haven't really referenced this statistic that you're referencing, and I would love for you to even pull it up. I'm actually watching the stream right now, or even
I'll pull it up.
Point me to the right direction.
Which one was it about the gay adoption thing?
Well, just marriages in transgender manner. LGBT marriages in general. Is that what you're arguing for? Is that?
I'm saying that since gay people don't do a harm to be together, and in fact they do a benefit, because since gay people obviously biologically cannot have their own kids, they are more likely to adopt. And even more so, they're more likely to adopt kids that are a little bit older or are already struggling from like disabilities and things. So these kids are a lot of times already in a really difficult position to even get adopted, because you know how it is. Like people are pretty weird about that. So gay couples are actually more likely to adopt even those kids. So not only is it not doing a harm, it's actually doing a benefit.
Well, I would probably disagree with you there, just because I think the benefit of having a man and a woman in a household, and having wait,
before you say that though, but you got to tell me what that benefit is, because if kids do just as well as kids raised by straight couples, kids that are raised by gay couples do just as good, then where's the benefit of having specifically a man and a woman?
Well, I think that's where you have to, I think that's where you have to clarify what well means. Like in every single facet of like a normal
emotional well-being, like mental well-being, drug use, academic performance, the main things that people look at to measure well-being.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'd love for you to reference this because I've never heard of this.
I'm trying to find it right now. Don't worry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll continue after that. And again, I don't have too much time, but
no, I understand that you have to go too.
I would love to. No, but I think I've heard you argue this before, but I have not really looked into the actual study that you reference. But yeah, I'd love to learn more about it if I can. Be challenged.
Okay.
Do you know who it's by? Is it like by a certain government institution or?
There's multiple different ones.
Okay.
So here's one on screen right now from Cornell. What does the scholarly research say about the well-being of children with gay or lesbian parents? There were 79 scholarly studies that met their criteria for adding to knowledge. Taken together, this research forms an overwhelming scholarly consensus based on over 3 decades of peer-reviewed research that having a gay or lesbian parent does not harm children. That's one of them. There's also, let's see.
Sorry, hang on. Cornell.
Oh, here. I'll just send you the link. Here you go.
No, I've got it. I've got it pulled up right now.
Okay. There's another one here as well from 2014.
But what about this one that says it's gay parenting raises risks? Maybe I'm not reading into this as much as I should.
So there are some that are really poorly done studies, and there's one really famous study specifically used that says that kids raised by gay couples did way worse and had higher rates of drug use and whatnot. But then that later was identified that study had actually looked at parents that had abandoned their current family to go pursue a gay relationship, which obviously is different than like being adopted into a stable gay relationship.
Sure. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, but there's also this one here. I mean, this is recent legal cases. Let's see. Article includes our assessment of the literature focusing on those studies, reviews, and books published within the past decade. There's a clear consensus in the social science literature indicating that American children living within same-sex parent households fare just as well as those children residing within different sex parent households over a wide array of well-being measures: academic performance, cognitive development, social development, psychological health, early sexual activity, and substance abuse. So that's another one. So that's what I mean.
Which one's that? Which is that one by?
I'll send you this one. This is on from PubMed. National Library of Medicine, but it's...
Yes, okay, that's the one I was reading. Okay.
Yeah.
And do we know that these studies are statistically significant? Or do we know the statistical significance and if they stray from one end or another, or is that not?
I mean, you can go down right here and look. So look, the sample sizes used. I mean, they're using 8,000 people here, 155 here, 78, 152. So the sample sizes are definitely like within a proper range, I'd say. They're definitely not like... We looked at 3 families and they all said they're great. You know, like
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sample of descent. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I have not seen this before, so that is something that I would love to look into.
Well, definitely look into it. I know you don't have a lot of time, and I'd rather leave the conversation here on a good note because I know we don't still see eye to eye, but this is part of the reason why is because I think that following God doesn't actually lead to a better to betterment of society. And I think that,
I mean, if you're only going against this idea of marriage, then in this one instance, sure, but you're also disregarding every other standard of not cheating on your wife, on not cheating in relationships, on giving to people and serving others before yourself. I mean, these are all... But
I think that all of that I agree that those are all, by the way, like fantastic morals to have, obviously. But I would say my argument would be that all of those things can be argued for and achieved through secular means probably better. So I would be able to argue that like cheating on your partner, what sounds better? It's bad because God says, or it's bad because you made a promise to another person, you're going back on that promise, and in doing so, you're causing them significant emotional and psychological harm.
Well, why can't both be just as I mean
they could be, sure, but then at that point I don't need...
I mean, that would just be as valid to say. I mean,
not really, because I don't need God to tell me that. Through science and other means, I can find that conclusion. I can arrive at the same conclusion without ever needing God to tell me like cheating is bad.
Well, I mean, that's true, but science also can't really explain why we love other people, why we are willing to make sacrifices for people. I mean, that's still kind of up in the air as well. So you can't say that explains everything.
Science can't explain a good deal of love and whatnot, but just if things aren't fully explained by science doesn't necessarily mean, or actually it would be a logical fallacy to just fall back on and be like, well, I guess it's God because we don't have a better explanation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point. And obviously science evolves as we go over time. But again, science can't really explain the intangible. That's my point, is that it's very good at explaining the natural world and what we can observe around us. But there's still a lot of outliers in the intangible that it cannot, and in my opinion probably will not.
Well, yeah, I mean, that isn't really what science specifically is designed for. It is meant to explore the physical world. So
yeah,
so
now, okay, so then why are we applying the scientific method to the Bible if it never
Because
really
the
was intended
Bible
to be
should
that way?
align with the scientific method, right? So, like, if God says, hey, don't cheat on your wife, that makes sense because in doing so, that leads to emotional and psychological harm. However, when God says, don't be gay or don't have gay sex, there's no harm that comes from that. There's actually a harm in restricting that.
So the Bible follows the scientific method in some ways it doesn't?
Well,
Like,
no,
it's
it doesn't follow it enough. But what I'm saying is if God is the creator of everything, which would also mean science, then God's commands and everything else should line up with science, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, which is another whole argument.
Yeah, that is
to get into.
something we'll get in next time. But I feel like that's very intellectually inconsistent to say that it just follows it sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. I feel
No.
like that's a
I'm
little
saying that
inconsistent.
that takes away from the validity of the Bible. The fact that it's not consistently in line with also the scientific discoveries demonstrates that the Bible's not really that great because God gave us a brain, God gave us science, so our scientific discoveries should point to or at least align with what God says. They don't, so therefore I doubt God.
Scrolls, you got
The Dead Sea Scrolls weren't even the original transcripts. Those were just copies of copies.
They were the Greek manuscripts of copies that were then put into the Bible, and they were originals that yes were transcribed over and copied, but they were still original.
They've never found the original manuscripts of the Bible.
No, I'm saying the Dead Sea Scrolls were copies for the Bible.
Okay, well, still, what I was getting at is just that it doesn't matter. Like, we can find ancient text, ancient scrolls. That doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean it happened. And again, it doesn't line up with the science. So if God says this is good, this is bad, there should be a provable scientific reason why.
Hang on, this is important right here. So you're saying that historical documents, eyewitnesses, things that have told the history of humanity for time and again, for some reason is applicable for when we're learning about the American Revolution, when we're learning about Eastern European history, Western European history.
No, because again, there's evidence.
And
this is what I'm getting at. No, because there's evidence and actual records of somebody like George Washington existing. When we look at the Bible, we see 600,000 Israelites traveled through the desert. When we scour that desert, we find literally zero evidence, zero archaeological remains of any mass civilization ever existing in that desert. So there's a problem.
Wait, what desert? What are you talking about?
What the desert that God had had Moses wandering through for 40 days and 40 nights, or 40 years.
Exodus.
Yeah, in Exodus.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the desert specifically, but archaeologists scoured the entire desert and they didn't even find anything.
So they didn't find that, but yet they found evidence for Jesus' existence in the tomb. They found the cloth that Jesus had presumably
That cloth has been so heavily contested, bro. You know that, though.
I actually didn't. I'm not even gonna lie. But
that cloth is like there have been like in-depth CSI fucking investigations on it. Then they pretty much ruled that like it's a fake.
Well, okay. Then what about the 4 different accounts of Jesus' existence? Do you think that was all cabal?
No, I think that somebody named Jesus may have existed, but that doesn't mean that somebody named Jesus existed then rose from the dead. And if we want to go by
4 of them died for this supposed fake death.
Yes. There were also Islamic extremists that flew airplanes into the Twin Towers for their beliefs, and that doesn't mean that Islam is true.
Because they actually had something. Okay. Well, I think this is probably we're going to have to end it on and maybe disagree. No, but that's valid. Honestly, there's a lot of there's a lot of good arguments coming from you, but I think there's also a lot of hurt coming from you as well, Hunter. And but I do enjoy this discussion. I would love to discuss with you actually with another time.
Yeah.
If you actually have time.
Definitely call back in sometime.
I appreciate it being civil. I appreciate it being intellectual. I like it when it's like this, when it's chill.
Yeah, same.
But,
all right, well, you have a good rest of your night.
I'll talk to you later, man. Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
I really wanted to ask about the aliens. I wanted to say there are a ton of eyewitness reports and documentation of people being abducted by aliens, but we don't believe in aliens, do we? What about all the documentation and reports of eyewitness sightings of Elvis after his death? We don't believe that Elvis is risen from the dead, do we? But for some reason, a story about 3,000 years ago, somebody rising from the dead, everyone's like, yup, I'm convinced. That's for real. If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.